we finished Psukei de Zimra last week, and we're going to get started with Barchu going into Shema. We're on page 406, and the discussions that we're going to get into now, we're going to start with basically the first thing that we're referring to as Dvarim Shebekdusha. Dvarim Shebekdusha means things that we deal with in holiness, and it is things that we only do in a minyan. So up until now, Psukei de Zimra with a minyan, without a minyan, not going to make a difference. The blessings of the morning with a minyan, without a minyan, not going to make a difference. But now, we said we'll say Kaddish, and then we go Barchu. And with Barchu, we need 10 men. 10 men to be able to do any of these things that we refer to as holy things. And the question is, why do we need a minyan? What is a minyan? Why only men? Why from a certain age, and all of that? So first of all, the first point of why we need a minyan is that you don't think by yourself, I have the right to pray. Okay? When I'm coming to pray, I'm coming to pray from a place of togetherness. I'm coming to pray, I am allowed to pray by myself, but the Gemara says if you pray and there's a minyan around you and you've decided to pray by yourself, then you get judged as someone who thinks that they can be judged by themselves. When we are praying together, I'm asking God not to judge me by myself, but rather to judge us as a group, as a collective, right? So I say, I'm not perfect, right? And you're not perfect, but together, please look at the good sides in each one of us and judge us from that place. So from that place, we start with the minyan. Now, there's a lot of different sources in the Gemara that refer to a minyan and talk about why we settle at the number 10. Two of the main stories that we have in the Torah that settle at the number 10. One we read 2 weeks ago with the story of Avraham and Sodom, right? The story of Avraham and Sodom. So God says, I'm going to destroy the city of Sodom. And Avraham it's 5 cities. And Avraham starts to pray. And he says, what if there are 50 righteous people? Are you going to kill the righteous and wicked alike? And Hashem says, no, if there are 50 righteous peoples in the city, I will save the cities, right? These 50 people will be able to save everybody. He says, what about if there's only 40? What if there's only 30? What if there's only 20, right? And when Abraham gets down to 10, he stops. If there's 10 righteous people, God won't destroy the city. Therefore, we understand that in these types of discussions, the number 10 is very powerful. The Gemara goes into a whole discussion about 2 people sitting and learning, 3 people who are sitting and judging, right? As a court system, that God is with them. But for prayer, 10 people who are praying. That is what we need, okay? The other story that we have of 10 comes much later on, comes in the story of the spies. The spies that are going to Israel, there's 12 spies, 1 from each tribe, right? And they go to Israel. And when they go to Israel, they come back, and 10 of them speak very, very poorly about Israel, and 2 speak well. Yehoshua ben Nun and Kalev ben Yefune, they speak well about Israel. Everybody else has bad things to say. And one of the opinions says, because of those 10 that have spoken ill about Israel, we gather together 10 to go and speak well on behalf of the nation. And this is where the source of 10. So those are 2 different sources of 10. There's a lot of other opinions of why we have a minyan and why we gather, but we can leave it right now for then. The question is, why men and not women, right? Are women's prayers any less valuable? There's a question that someone asked that, I'm hiking in Israel and I see that there's 9 religious guys looking for a minyan. and they're trying to basically get this one guy who's not religious to come and join, and he doesn't want to be there, and he wants to leave. He feels uncomfortable. He's joining it, but he doesn't want to really be there. And she says, I do want to be there. Why is my will for praying, is that not enough? Right? I'm gonna focus better. I want to do it, but no one's even looking at me. Right? And the question came up, and it was a very, very interesting discussion. The rabbi actually answered it very, very, very nicely, realizing where the place of the question is coming from as well, and said like this: men and women are created differently. We're created differently, and we have different roles in our relationship with God. Okay? Man is created min ha'adama. Adam min ha'adama. Man is created from the dirt, right? God takes the dirt and creates. The word even Adam, man, comes from the word Adama, from the land, right? And what is the woman created from? Where is Chava created from? She's created from man. In other words, from a more complete part of creation, a higher elevated point of creation, she's created from, right? So she's already more elevated and closer to God in this kind of way. But because of that, we have a very different relationship and different goals. Some of this has to do with very, very logistical side of halacha, which says women physically didn't have as much time as men, needed more rest, like if women would have a commandment to do everything that men do, right, in the same time frame, then you think of all of the repercussions that come with that, whether it's with childbirth or taking care of certain things that have always been women taken care of, and therefore there's a anthropological kind of view on, well, this is why women were exempt for all of history. However, exempt does not mean you are not allowed to do that. Right? So going back to something that I mentioned, I don't remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, but there's Gadol Mitzuveh V'oseh, Mishe'eno Mitzuveh V'oseh. It is bigger to do something when you are commanded to do it than doing something that you're not commanded to do. Because everybody wants to do the parts of things that they're not told to do. But as soon as you're told to do it, there's an obligation. And the obligation is actually what makes the challenge of doing it. And if you are not commanded to do something, you can't take the place of someone who is commanded to do so. Okay? So, again, men have the mitzvah of, let's say, making kiddush. Women do not. So a man can make kiddush for his family. A woman can make kiddush for other women and children, right? But a woman could make the blessing on the bread for everybody, because we all have the same obligation in that blessing, right? So it's not about a hierarchy, but rather different roles and different relationships we have with God. We also have this throughout the rest of Judaism, right? We have this with mitzvahs that are only for the Kohanim, only for the priests, mitzvahs that are only for the rest of the nation, mitzvahs that are only for men, mitzvahs that are only for women, mitzvahs of the nation towards converts, right? Mitzvahs that converts have to accept on themselves. It's all dynamic. And in this, it's not a hierarchy. The biggest problem that there is right now with all of these discussions that are happening worldwide is women saying, I want to do this like a man does it, right? And what ends up happening is this is a lot more religious chauvinism than religious feminism. What ends up happening is women say, this is what men are doing, I want to do the same. As opposed to saying, men should be the best men they could be, women should be the best women they can be, right? It's not a competition. It's everybody's doing their own thing. And if everybody's doing their own thing, we actually reach a much higher potential as a nation, as a people, when everybody is doing their own, what they're supposed to be doing in the best way that they could. So right now, right, like this is a discussion that we've had also in the community about what could women do over here, allowing women to do anything that halachically is permissible, right? Like allowing women to do these things so that women don't say, I want to do what men are doing. I want to do what I could do to the best of my capabilities, right? This is a very long discussion that happened with the women of the wall, that they said, we want to wear tefillin and a talit and tzitzit, right? Like, we want to do all the same mitzvahs as men. And you go and you have I've had some real conversations. Obviously, I'm sure there were some of them that had more sincere answers, but all of it was for provoking reasons, right? There are people who are doing it from a sincere religious place of elevation and looking for more, right? And that's another question. Are they allowed to? Are they not? We'll leave that out for right now, okay, about what mitzvahs are exclusively for men, what mitzvahs are exclusively for women. But when it comes to prayer, men have this obligation that women do not. And because women do not have this obligation, they're not able to participate in the minyan as part of the minyan. However, a woman who would like to pray 3 times a day should pray 3 times a day. It's a good thing to do. A woman who would like to come to the synagogue should come to the synagogue. It's a good thing to do. This is called Berov Am Hadarat Melech. Then with the masses, you go and you greet the king, right? Men, women, and children. Everybody comes. Everybody comes to greet the king. Why? Because it's respectable for the king. So even though really only the president needs to be there to greet the king, right? But it's not nice for the president to stand there by himself. His wife should be there with him, his family, his children, right? Like everybody should be there. So if a king's coming into town, you do everybody together. Same goes with prayer, and in this way, the prayer itself, we come in together and we say we're all praying together, but the obligation is specifically for men over the age of 13 and having 10 men over there. If we finish Psukei de Zimra and we see that we do not yet have a minyan, it is a good thing to do to stop and wait if you know that there's someone that is coming, and even make people wait an amount of time, right? Like not like just like, oh, let's wait 2 seconds. Have people wait a little bit while we're waiting for a minyan to show up, because it is important to say Barchu. So now what is Barchu? Barchu is the bottom of the page over here on 406, okay, 406, and we say, the Chazan, the one who's leading the service, says, Baruchu et Hashem hamvorach. Bless God, bless Hashem, the blessed one. This is a call for action. Baruchu, I am telling you all to bless God, right? In other words, I am leading you, right? I'm the Chazan, so I am leading you. The other word for Chazan, okay, Chazan, it comes from like more of like a singing expression, but we have the other name for a Chazan is a Shaliach Tzibur. Shaliach Tzibur literally means someone that the congregation is sending to lead, right? He is being appointed by the mass to go and lead them. So you have one Chazan who gets up and he will lead the congregation. So now, let's say I'm leading. So when I'm saying Barchu, and I'm telling everybody else, bless God, right? I'm asking in a way permission to lead you. You've seen this, that I do this in Kiddush, right? I'm saying Kiddush, I'm the only one saying the blessing. And everyone else is going to respond, right? Everyone else just says Amen. I don't do this with every blessing, but I could with Kiddush, right? With Kiddush, I take the cup and I say, I'm going to make Kiddush. I make the bracha. Before I make the bracha, I say, Savri Maranan, okay? With permission, my rabbis, okay? And I look at everyone, I'm asking permission. Because if I'm saying a blessing for you, right? If I'm saying a blessing for you, then what am I asking? What am I trying to do? I'm trying to say, please focus, because I'm about to exempt you in the blessing. Whenever we're doing any of these things, we always try to make sure that while we're doing them, there's a call for action. So a zimun, when we finish eating, 3 men, the first one will also say, Rabotai nevarech, let's all bless God. right? The original Birkat HaMazon, the blessing after the meal, only the person who was leading actually made the blessing. Everybody else just says Amen in the end of blessings. And Yemenites still do that to this day. Okay? Some Yemenites still do that. In a way of, I'm going to make a blessing, you just say Amen after me. When it comes to over here, the Chazan says, Barchu, all of you bless God. Everybody replies, Baruch Hashem Hamvorach L'olam V'ed. Blessed is Hashem, the blessed one, from now to for all eternity. And then the Chazan repeats that same sentence. In other words, I'm asking you to bless God. You all bless God, and I repeat afterwards, and now we continue. Okay? So that is the Baruch Hu in the beginning of the service. Now you'll notice that we have Shachar who says Kaddish, not for much longer, okay? But it says Kaddish in the end of services. And before we say Aleinu, Shachar says Baruch Hu again, okay? And there's a few questions of why or if we should be saying Baruch Hu. There are opinions that say that we say Baruch Hu for those who missed it, who showed up late and weren't going to miss the first Baruch Hu, okay? And there are other opinions that say we say Baruch Hu no matter what, okay? So a lot of customs say we don't say Baruch Hu on Shabbat, on Monday or Thursday. Any time that we have Torah reading, then we already said Baruch Hu enough times, we don't need to repeat it again in the end of services. But there are customs in certain communities that doesn't matter if they read Torah or if they didn't, we always say Baruch Hu in the end to make sure that if someone walked in late or missed Baruch Hu, they would still be able to have it. And even if everyone was there in the beginning, we were only 10 in the beginning and we're the same 10 in the end, we still say Baruch Hu because it's still blessing God and we are finishing it all together. Okay? Same goes for Arvit, for the night prayer, that in the night prayer you also have some people who say Baruch Hu in the end of Kaddish, in the end of services before Aleinu, and they'll only do it, again, a lot of customs will only do it if there was someone who wasn't there for the first Baruch Hu who missed that out. So that's just a technical part because Shachar does say Baruch Hu over here, so it's just to be familiar with that as a custom. Okay. Any questions on Baruch Hu before we continue? No? Okay. So on the bottom of page 406, now we're getting into the blessings of Shema. The blessings of Shema, the Gemara tells us, the Mishnah tells us before this, that there are special blessings that happen before Shema and after Shema. 2 before, 1 after. That's what we're focusing on now. The 2 before are like this. In Kriyat Shema, we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and we're going to focus on Shema next week. But Hashem Echad, God is one. Okay, that is the first blessing that we're focusing on now. The first blessing, we'll read it now. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech haolam. Yotzer or uvorech choshech, oseh shalom uvoreh et hakol. Bless you, God, the Master of the world, the King of the world, the Creator of light and darkness, the one who makes peace and creates everything. This is God's oneness in this blessing. Now, if you look in this Siddur, you'll see that after the word hakol, there's the number 5. The number 5 tells me that this is a pasuk in the Torah, in the Tanakh. There's a source for it. It's not just words of prayer. There's a source for it. Where is it from? It's from Yeshaya Memhei Pasuk Zayin. Okay? In Isaiah 45. Okay? What does it actually say over there? Uvoreh et hara. Okay? It doesn't, over here it says the creator of everything. Over there it says and the creator of bad. Yotzer or uvoreh choshech, oseh shalom uvoreh et hara, ani Hashem oseh kol ele. Okay? Creator of light and creator of darkness, maker of peace, and creator of bad, I am God that does all of this. Again, I have mentioned this beforehand, but it's important. In the beginning of the war, there was a pastor who told me, he says, this is the devil's work, right? And I corrected him on that. And I said, no, this is God's work, right? Don't let God off the hook when something's bad. There is no devil in Judaism that you just throw things on and say, there's God, there's the devil, they fight, they wrestle with each other. And when things are bad, we say it's the devil's work and God is just helpless, right? That's not how we view things. And they change the blessing because it sounds nicer, okay? It sounds nicer. But in the essence of this blessing, we're saying God creates everything, good and bad, right? And the Mishnah goes further and says, "Chayav Adam lehodot ala tova l'ra'a kashem shemodeh ala tova." You need to thank God when bad things happen to you, just as much as when good things happen to you. So okay, I understand saying thank you when good things happen, but when bad things happen, right? We could say Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. Bless God for being a fair judge. That's what we say when someone dies. We say Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. But to say thank you, to be appreciative of bad things that happen. So Rav Nachman from Breslov talks about this in Likutei Moharan in Kuf Samech Hey. He talks about it over there, and he says, when something bad happens to you, you realize that it could have been so much worse. And whenever something bad happens, you realize how much you have to say thank God for, right? And the example that my rabbi used to give, he says, imagine you're driving in your car and you get stuck on the train tracks and the train hits you, you go flying out of your car, you roll, 10, 20 meters on the road. It says, and you wake up and you got a big cut on your face. And it scars, right? And it's unpleasant. But then every time you look in the mirror, you have this ugly scar on your face. What emotion goes through your mind, right? You look at it and say, I should have been dead. So I have a scar. It's okay. I have a scar. It's ugly. It's painful. I should have been dead, right? Saying thank you when bad things happen is extremely important to understand. Things could have been way worse. Maybe things were supposed to be way worse. Okay? There's a Gemara that talks about this in Chet HaEgel, in the sin of the golden calf, that Hashem says to Moshe, move out of my way and I will destroy this nation. And Moshe begs God not to. And it says that, and the Gemara says, it's as if the king decides to throw a boulder on his son. Says he must be punished. And the son pleads for mercy. So the king says, I already made a decree that I'm going to throw this rock on him. But instead of throwing it as a boulder, let me grind it up into small rocks. I'll throw it every once in a while. I'll throw a pebble here, a pebble there. It hurts, it's unpleasant, but it's not a boulder. It doesn't destroy you, right? So when we look at this and we say, God creates also the bad things that happen, right? God created the Holocaust, right? Don't let God off the hook that easy. God created the 7th of October and Hamas and Hezbollah and everything else that we need to deal with. God helps guide us in the same way that He guides good, right? We can blame people. People need to pay for their actions. People need to take responsibility. We don't believe in just anything, right? And we believe in free will. We do have that kind of responsibility to stand up and fight. But this is also God. So Hashem Echad, we talked about this back then when we did the class, but we'll talk about it again next week, is the oneness of God. Everything, good and bad, comes from God. Then, on page 408 and 410, okay, but we'll briefly focus on 408. You have on the top what we're saying on Shabbat, on the bottom what we say on a weekday. Okay, so I'm specifically going in over here so that we can see how it looks also during the week and how it looks during Shabbat. So let's start with the weekday. Hameir La'aretz. This is not a blessing. This is a piyut. Piyutim are songs, poems, other things that are added in throughout the prayers. We are very familiar with this from Yom Kippur, from Rosh Hashanah, from Tisha B'Av, Kinot in the same way. But over here we also have like little songs and prayers and things that are added in. Hameir La'aretz only really gets interesting in a way when it gets to where it's already starting to be highlighted. El Baruch Gadol De'ah Hechin U'Fo'el Zarei Chama. And if you are catching the Israelis here, at least should be hearing what I'm doing. Tov Yatzar Kavod Lishmo Meorot Natan Saviv Uzo Aleph Bet Gimel Dalet. It goes through the entire Aleph Bet, but it's very, very brief. It's actually, if I'm not mistaken, the briefest that there is in any prayer. It's the Aleph Bet, but only 22 letters, 22 words, which means there is no spare word in this entire part, right? It goes Aleph Bet, Gimel Dalet, and so on. When we talk about Aleph Bet and Ashrei, it's Ashrei shebetecha odi alelu chasei Hashem shekachala Hashem she'Hashem elokav Tila leDavid, right? Here's the Aleph. Right? There's like Aleph, a whole sentence, Bet, a whole sentence. So we have that a lot. Over here, it's very, very brief, right? And where does it actually get intense is on Shabbat. So on 410, El Adon is the same type of, it's really the same prayer in many ways, like that section of El Baruch, okay? But because it's Shabbat, it is graced with having more words and more song. And we sing it, and it's beautiful, right? There's a lot of different tunes for El Adon. And when we finish with Tiferet Ugdula. Shevach Notnim Lo. We'll start with one line before the end of El Adon. Page 410. Shevach Notnim Lo Kol Tzeva Marom. They're praised that all of the angels, it's not just angels, it's the whole, everybody above, the host above, right, bestow praise upon him. Huh? Heaven's army, yeah. It's like, so are all praising him. Tiferet Ugdula, okay, the splendidness and the greatness, Srafim, the Ofanim, the Chayot HaKodesh, okay, the Srafim, the Ofanim, and the Chayot HaKodesh, the holy beast, the holy. What is Srafim? So we have just now three different types of mystical angel types of things. When we talk about it in Ishaya, in Yirmiyah, right, like you have like prophets that talk about seeing them, right? He's got, right, 2 legs that are 2 feet but 1 leg, 6 wings, the mouth's on fire, right? And everything is, getting destroyed in front of them, right? You have the Chayot HaKodesh from the Merkavah, right? Again, not things that are often discussed because this gets into Kabbalah, and we don't really deal with this in many discussions. Like we kind of leave it out and say these are stuff of the mystical realm and we don't talk about them. But what we see is that everybody's praising God, and there's 3 different angels or types of angels that are praising God. Okay, let's keep that for a second.
Ofanim is like angel?
Ofanim are a type of angel. Yeah. Okay. I don't know the exact word of Ofanim in. Right. So there's a lot of. So there's different. There's the whole story with what's called Chashmal and Maaseh Merkava that talk in great detail about these types of angels, and we don't deal with it a lot. Right? So we kind of like put it in the side and we say there's 3 different categories of angels that we're referring to over here, right? And then we have a special praise with a again, it's still in the category of a piyut, La'el Asher Shabbat, the God that rested on Shabbat and is elevated and sits on his throne. He makes He makes this day special, and he calls oneg, he calls this day pleasure. This day is a pleasurable day. Zeh shevach shel yom hashvi'i. This is the joy and the praise of the seventh day. What is it? Shebo Shavat ha'el, that God rests. And that's when we say, Mizmor shir liyom ha'Shabbat. Therefore, we will praise, and all of these praises of Shabbat. So what is this praise of God? That we are resting on Shabbat. When we are resting on Shabbat, right, we say this in Kiddush. Why are we doing? Vayichulu hashamayim va'aretz v'chol tzavam. God stops the creation, elevates the creation now into Shabbat, into rest. That's why we rest. We rest as a nation to bear testimony that God created the world in 7 days. It's a covenant. It's not up to you or not to keep it, right? Like it's a covenant. It's a core of Judaism. Is you must rest on Shabbat. You need to be there because this is my acknowledgement that God created the world, right? So I'm sitting there with him and resting. And then we continue with Titbarach on page 412. Titbarach now is where all the days meet up. All the days meet up in Titbarach, and the prayer goes like this. You should be blessed, may you be blessed, our rock, our king, our redeemer, the one who creates all things holy. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Malkeinu, like the words of Yishtabach that we said, that you are creating servants, and the servants are all standing. Birum Olam, they're all standing in the heavens. Umashmi'im bi'ira, and they are making sound with respect and fear, together, loudly, all of these masterful and powerful things. And then where the star is, v'chulam patchim et pihem, and all of them together open their mouths, bikdusha v'tara, in holiness and in purity, b'shira v'zimra, in song and in praise, umvarchim u'mishabchim u'mfa'arim u'maritzim u'makdishim u'mamlichim. And when they're doing this, they're doing it, they're blessing and they're praising and all other types of words of praise, and they are crowning God's kingship, right, on the world. And what is it? Et Shem Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol, the name of God, the great God, and the brave, the powerful, and many other praises. And then it says, V'chulam mekablim alehem, and all of them are accepting upon themselves, Ol Malchut Shamayim, the yoke of the kingship of God, Ze mizeh, one from another. V'notnim reshut ze lezeh, and they're giving permission one to another. Lahakdish liyotzram, to praise their Creator, b'nachat ruach, b'safa berura u'v'nima, calmly, with a clear and very clear message. Kedusha kulam ke'echad onim ve'omrim bi'ira. Purely, with holiness, all of them say together, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Holy, holy, holy is Hashem, master of legions. The whole world is filled with His glory. Ve'ofanim, and then I'm going to explain all of it a little bit more. Ve'ofanim, and the ofanim, and the Chayot HaKodesh, the holy Chayot, with great noise, they are standing towards the Srafim, and they praise God in their own way, and they say, Baruch Kevod Hashem Imkomo. Okay, so before we go any further, we have two sets. We have the Srafim, and we have the Ofanim and Chayot HaKodesh. One of them has his way, okay? The Srafim have their way of praising God, whether it's from a place of being very close to God, or it's a kind of relationship that God has with them. But they say, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. God is holy. God is holy, He's holy, He's holy. Right? This is their praise. And the Fanim and Chayot HaKodesh, these majestic beasts that are closer in a way to God over here, they say, Baruch Kevod Hashem Yimkomo. They're blessing God in a completely different way. But how does this all start? They are each asking permission, requesting permission one from another to be able to bless God. Because their blesses possibly, depends on how you read the mystical side of it, possibly are completely opposing opinions, okay, of how we view God, or how the angels are viewing God. One views him in something so far away that he can't grasp, and therefore God is holy, but there is nothing else to add. And the other one is standing by God's throne, right? Or is God's throne, right? Like there's like different ways also of understanding that. So you look at all of this and say, their praise over here, very, very, very different, right? It's very different, very powerful, okay? But it comes because they're asking permission from one from another. When we finish and we say in the end of Kaddish, Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael v'imromav. Right? The one who makes peace amongst in the heaven will make peace down in this earth. Why is that such a powerful prayer? Because we can't make peace amongst ourselves. Okay? We can't. And the truth is that the angels can't make peace amongst themselves. The Zohar refers to it and says, these angels are made of fire, these angels are made of water. And they both are trying to destroy each other in their presence, right? They're that powerful, but they're complete opposite. They're the yin and yang, right? They're like standing there and forever chasing each other, trying to destroy each other, or at least that's their nature. But then they're standing in the presence of God, and everybody stands still, right? Everybody stands still, and everybody is respecting the other one's way of doing it, right? There's a great big specter of what is allowed, what is okay, right? As long as you're inside those boundaries of halakha, of what is okay, right? Then give permission one to another, okay? There's a book called Ve'achalta Ve'savata. Rav Yashiv Knoll and Rav Uriel, Shmuel Uriel, I think, wrote a book together about the halacha of keeping kosher, how to keep a kosher house. It's a great book. But my favorite part of the book is the opening. And in the opening, he says, I'm going to say what the halacha is, right? This is what you're supposed to do. I'm also going to write what you can do if you want to be stricter. What are you going to do if you want to be more lenient? Okay? And I want to right now write when it is good for you to be more strict about something and when it's good for you to be more lenient. Not anyone can decide to be lenient about whatever they want, and not anyone can decide to be strict about whatever they want, right? And when you decide that you want to be strict about something, remember you're being strict about it. Because when you become so pious about how strict you are, then when someone else isn't as strict as you, you say, he's not even Jewish anymore, okay? When someone isn't going to the full extent of your strictness, not of halacha, but of your strictness, okay? You say, this person isn't eating kosher, right? The importance of knowing, and it's really important to know what are those boundaries. What is a lenient side that is still halacha? What is the extreme side that is still halacha? And when have I left those boundaries? And if I've left those boundaries, how do I get back on that path, right? So the angels both know that they need to praise God. And each one of them has a completely different way of doing it. And because they have a different way of doing it, they must ask permission from each other. And because they're in God's presence, it works, right? Because they're in God's presence. So when they're doing it, that is their prayer. There is a question that is asked of if someone is davening without a minyan, should they say it or not? The opinion that we hold by as a widely accepted opinion is yes, you still say it. Even if you are by yourself and you do not have a minyan over there, you still continue and do say those blessings by yourself. Okay, but there are also opinions that say this is the prayer of the angels, and without a minyan we do not have permission to say it. Okay, so when we look at it in that kind of way, we understand the importance of this prayer, also keeping in mind for when we get to it, but the Kedusha that we say in the repetition of the Amidah is also part of the prayer of the angels, and the prayers of the angels we take very, very seriously in a mystical way. Okay, now we're at the second blessing on the bottom, Ahava Rabba. Okay, Ahava Rabba, a great love. Okay, so we said that we have Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Listen, Am Yisrael, God is one God, God is our God, right? God is our God, God is one God. And the second blessing connects to the Shema Yisrael part that has to do with the belief system. Okay, the belief system of having that relationship. Once I believe I have a relationship, right, which is the first part of Shema, and we will get into it next week. So once we're talking about that, we talk about it over here, okay? Ahava Rabba Avtanu, with an abundance of love, you've loved us, Hashem, our God. You've had compassion and more than you needed for us. And our Father, our King, because of our fathers who trusted you, and you taught them the rules of life. Please also have equally graciousness and teach us as well. Avinu Av Harachaman, our Father, our merciful Father, okay, have mercy on us and give us in our hearts and in our minds to know and to be able to learn and to teach, to keep the mitzvahs and everything in the Torah and with love, and make our eyes open our eyes so they shine with your Torah, and have our hearts be glued in with your mitzvahs, right? Like connect us, bond us in that kind of way. V'yached levavenu, and make oneness of our heart to want to love and to respect and to fear your name. And we should not be embarrassed in the world to come. We shouldn't be embarrassed because we weren't doing what we were supposed to do, that when we stand in front of you. The other way of reading it is, and we shouldn't be embarrassed from other people who look at us and say, what are you doing, right? When I'm in the airport, I put on my tefillin, right? Doesn't matter where I am. I put on my tefillin, and I get looks and I get questions, and I put my tefillin on. I remember I had a stopover in Turkey years ago. Now there's no more stopovers in Turkey, but I had a stopover in Turkey, and we made a minyan in the middle of the airport. We put on our tefillin, and security came, and it became like a whole thing. But you're gonna pray, right? Like, I'm not going to not pray because what are the Turkish gonna think? And I don't need to hide myself, right? We didn't stop anyone. We went into, like an area where it was like more quiet, where we had a corner of benches where we felt we can pray, right? But it causes attention, right? And a lot of people say, I don't want attention, right? Muslims will bow down in the middle of the airport, but I don't want attention. I'm gonna take the same attention. He's gonna pray, I'm gonna pray. I'm not embarrassed of who I am. I'm not gonna hide who I am. I'm not taking off my kippah. I'm not taking off my tzitzit because I'm surrounded with people with other opinions. No, I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud to be Israeli. I'm proud to be Jewish, right? Like, that's who I am. So that's another way of looking at it. Ki b'shem kodshecha, because in your holy name, the great and the masterful, we've trust. We will be joyful and we'll be happy with your redemption, and bring us peacefully from the four corners of the earth, and walk us proudly with our heads held high to our country, to our land, to Israel. Ki el poel yeshuat ata, because you are the creator of redemptions, and you've chose us from every nation and from every language and from everyone. And you have brought us closer you brought us closer to yourself, truly, to the truth, to be able to praise you and to sanctify you and in your oneness with love. Bless you, Hashem, habocher b'amo Yisrael b'ahava, the one who blesses, who chooses his nation with love. Right? So the first thing that we say in Shema is Shema Yisrael. Everybody here has that balance. Okay? The last part, so we said Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We said Shema Yisrael, we said Hashem Echad. The last one is Hashem Elokeinu, which has to do with you are our God, and that actually is in the last blessing with Atau Rishon, Atau Acharon, and Ga'al Yisrael, of having God's power in the world. Right? How is God showing his power in the world? The splitting of the sea and taking us out of Egypt and all of that. That's the blessing after Shema. And we'll focus on that when we get to there. But just to be able to have that as sort of a context, that just like how we've mentioned this beforehand, everything, it's like a matrushka doll, right? Like everything, you take it out, there's a smaller doll inside, but the core stays the same. So the core of these blessings are, there's praise beforehand. We're asking for what we want to ask in Shema, right? And then we finish Shema and we say, thank you, right? And we do this in all of our prayers. We have Psukei de Zimra, then we have Shema Shmona Esrei, then we have Aleinu L'Shabbat. We have this in Shmona Esrei. We have this in every single thing. So everything keeps on going. Just like any good, any good speech that you'll give, you have an introduction, you have the body, and then you sum it up in the end and have, like the point that you're trying to make, right? But it will keep on going. And in your entry, you'll have those three parts. And in the middle, you'll have those three parts. And in the end, you'll have those three parts, because that's how things are built over and over and over again. And our prayer isn't any different, right? So over here, we brought it up to the first pasuk of Shema that we will get into next week.